Alright, so in this video I'm going to describe or tell the story of my awakening. And I'm going to do it in two parts. So I'm going to do the first part, the initial realization, and the second part, the deconstruction of duality leading to the realization of no self as the nature of experience. So when doing these videos, I'm doing this video because I found awakening stories to be a powerful transmission, and I watched a lot of them and read a lot of them as I was going through this self-inquiry process. But I'll just say that the tendency will be there for some people who are watching this, and I'm just warning against this, to look from a position of me and see a you. So they'll see this David character here, and then what will be implied from that is that this is something to do with me, this David character. What I'm talking about is transcendent of those separate identities. What I'm talking about is the dissolution of you and me as we experience ourselves to be separate individuals. So this isn't an attainment by this person David here. That's not what I'm talking about. This isn't some quality that I attained or something that I got. So the best thing to do, I think, is to listen from an open and clear awakeness or awareness, a still space. So right, with that out of the road, I'll describe the whole thing, and I'll include some things that I've not talked about before. So the first non-dual experience I had was I got into meditation and Zen and Buddhism from a guy that I used to train with, and he had gone through this process already. Had gone through the inquiry process and the deconstruction of self and the realizations and so on. So I got into that, and when I first found out about enlightenment or awakening or what's talked about in Buddhism, something in me immediately knew without a doubt that was where I have to go or that was the solution to the underlying experience that something's not right about life, the big question mark of death and non-existence. The big question mark is that I don't know what this is. I don't know why I'm here. I can't. There's a limit to me being able to know. So when I read about Buddhism and Zen and enlightenment, instantly I just knew that's it. Without a doubt, that's it. I never had any doubt about it being real or being bullshit, anything like that. I just knew. So I started practicing meditation. Like I explained in my earlier videos, my meditation was me trying not to think, which didn't work. Thoughts. But I got on a train one day, and I don't like the train. It was very busy. It was a subway, so I sat in the seat and I closed my eyes. So all I could hear was all the noises and stuff like that. And I suddenly got this realization that I framed it like this: that these noises were the universe hearing itself, or the universe talking to itself. That's how I described it at the time, and something just clicked. It was a clear experience of non-duality, of non-separation, but I wasn't ready for that, so it kind of frightened me a little bit. And I immediately the mind came in and started talking about things like you've had a stroke, something's wrong with your brain. What the hell was that? Like, I wasn't ready for it at all. But in hindsight, I could tell it was a clear non-dual experience. So I was into Buddhism, all that. I was into meditation and Zen, and I knew something wasn't right about how I was experiencing life. I knew that this deep underlying question was causing dissatisfaction, discomfort, and suffering. But that was in my late teens. For the next 10 years, I forgot about that, ignored it, and lived my life as a fully identified person. So I went on many quests to try and ease this deep sense of dissatisfaction and suffering. And throughout the whole time, I just knew it wasn't right, but I still did it. I still forgot about the enlightenment thing, and I got fully into the identification thing for 10 years. And during that time, there was a huge amount of suffering. So anyway, as I got a bit older, casually, I remembered this awakening thing. I remembered that the books that I've got about Buddhism I still had, and when I was 33, or a little bit before that, I would casually, looking back now, it was inquiry, but I would casually question, what is this? Without any like strong intention to get something, or it was just a casual, what is this? And I started to feel something there, feel something beyond the capabilities of mind to understand. I just felt that there was something here, and somehow I didn't have access to it. So I'll talk about this right on. When I was 33, on my 33rd birthday, I took mushrooms, quite a substantial amount, and it was one of the most incredible and terrifying experiences ever. So during this trip, I can only describe it like I communicated with a non-human intelligence. It was, I can't describe it, it was crazy, but that's how I interpreted it. So this non-human intelligence, I interacted with it for a while, and then I started asking questions. So I asked, what are you? And the response was, it wiped my mind clean. So this questioning I had, these thoughts, instantly gone, and it was pure silence, pure presence. And I kind of moved back out of that, and I said, what is this? What am I? What is life? Do you have the answers to this? And again, it wiped my mind clean, took all the thoughts away. And the intention behind that was, the communication I got from that was that we are the same. This is how we are the same. And go here. This is how you do it. You go here. So it was telling me that, in hindsight, I realised it was telling me that to prepare me for what was about to happen. And what was about to happen is it deconstructed all duality and showed me no self, showed me true nature, but it did it instantly. So everything I knew about myself, my mind, how I relate as a person, fell away completely, and I fought it. It told me not to, but I fought it, and it was horrible, terrifying. Basically, what it was doing, it was killing myself. It was showing me death. So my reaction as a self was to fight it. And I had all these thoughts about getting back to my wife and my kids and so on. Eventually I said something like, why are you doing this to me? I was kind of dying and then being reborn, dying and coming back, dying and coming back. I said, why are you doing this to me? And it pointed to the me, the you. And I kept saying, why are you doing this to me? And it pointed to the me. And something just clicked. I turned around and there was no me there. And then it just went to complete non-dual presence. Instantly, that trip disappeared. It was like I got something, but I didn't know what I got. It was on a different level, the recognition. And then the whatever non-human intelligence had answered the question in some way. Instantly the trip just came back to normal, which was really strange. So that made me question. It showed me that something about life, something about reality or experience. It showed me that what I know as the relative world and the norm and the conventions and how I live, it showed me that there's something beyond that. It directly showed me that. So, and it wasn't, the way I interpreted it, it wasn't like a trip, a non-real thing. It was an insight into a deeper level of reality. So that thing that I got it stayed with me for a while. And again, I casually got into inquiry. So the way I did it was I would walk a lot. And as I was walking, I would put my attention in immediate reality and presence in the environment and my senses and my breathing. And as I was appreciating the environment, I was aware when the mind came in to lead into a stream of self-referential identified thoughts. So it started off as I would be lost in thoughts, and then suddenly I would just notice, I've been thinking, I'm lost in this thought stream, and it was like coming back to a different perspective. It was like waking up out of that mini dream of being in this thought stream. These automatic self-identified thoughts that just run, they just appear, they come up and grab your attention, and then you're in it. So these moments where I would wake up and I would notice that I'm lost in thought, it felt like I was expanding out of that closed identified loop, and that kept happening. I would come back into thought, notice, and come back out to what you would maybe describe as the aware watcher, but it still had a personal quality to it. It still felt like a personal awareness, a personal watcher, a separate awareness. So as that practice continued, it started to, it was easier to keep my attention in immediate reality in the senses. And I would be aware of the thoughts coming up. I did this in meditation too. I'd be aware of the thoughts coming up and forming. And it seemed like I had expanded out of that, whereas before I was in it. But this time I could see all of it happening. So I could see the thoughts coming, and it was like I was bigger than that. What I felt like me had expanded a little bit out of that. So I could see them coming and then dissolving, and they came and dissolved before they even formed. So it was like a undefined thought as this practice continued. And then eventually I would have little periods of complete thoughtlessness, nothing being there apart from myself, what I feel like I am. And I kept doing that, and there was a peace in that. There was a release in that. There was an escape in that from identification, from the limits of the personal self. So I was ecstatic because I had discovered this practice where I could get out of this, whatever this was that was causing me so much suffering. I could stop the mind. The thoughts didn't have the same power anymore. So there was a reduction in suffering there already. So it was just that practice of noticing thoughts as they come up, and then noticing that they are thoughts, and then disidentifying from them by noticing them. They dissolve. Come back to what is it that's me that is aware of these thoughts. So then in this space of no thought, this is where it's going to be hard to describe. What came up was a knowingness, an awareness, a present aliveness that is inherently self-aware, without a division, inherently knows itself, without having to confirm that with a definition or a label, without having to confirm that as the thinker, as an objective thought, without having to think to know it. The knowingness was inherently knowing itself. And I noticed that it knows thoughts as well. It knows everything. It wasn't limited to the confines of this small me that's in here. It's expansive in a very paradoxical way. I noticed that there was the thoughts, but then there was in the thoughts, I noticed, in the thoughts, there was the suggestion of a thinker. The suggestion of the one referring to the thought somehow separate from it as me, or the thoughts relating to me, the one who's thinking. I noticed that feeling, that real feeling of that subject, that real feeling of me as the thinker, subject to my thoughts, the thoughts refer to me, it felt like a real experience, a real feeling, but somehow there was a separation from that. So it was more of a hidden, subtle thought that just felt like me. This underlying feeling of me as a separate entity, me as a subject, that was noticed as a thought. So at that point something clicked, and it was just all there was thought. All there was seeing, hearing. That all appeared within what I feel like I am, the deepest essence of what I am as this awareness, this ever-present, self-aware knowingness that knows itself, even with thought, knows the thoughts. You can't find a limit to it. You don't have to think to confirm it. It already knows itself. Self-knowing, aware presence. And there's a great relaxation there, because I realised that it's not something you get, it's something you lose. You lose the illusion of the separate subject relating to thoughts. So it was a relaxation into this that's inherently always here. I realised it's not something I was going to get, that I was looking out as an object, as a goal. It was back the way. It was almost like the reverse of that. The reverse of trying to get something is just knowing what's already here, that knows itself, that's self-aware. And it was just a massive relief, because I didn't have to get anything anymore. I just had to let go of the thing that thinks it needs to get something. But it took all those years to figure that out, let's say, or notice that. So then this self-aware knowingness, it wasn't something I did, it wasn't a practice I was doing, it was the inherent nature of what I am, essentially, and what I am knows itself. So it was like there's nothing to do. So that illusion was over, that me in the mind relating to thoughts, me in the mind trying to get some awakening in the future, that was gone. So the pressure was off. So then I could just appreciate what's here, appreciate what I had realised. So it was just disidentifying from thoughts. I think what helped was I did it in a casual way. I did it when I was enjoying something, and it wasn't like I was doing it to get a goal, to get awakening. It was something that I was just doing casually as like a hobby when I was walking. And and I was already enjoying the scenery and stuff like that for what it is that's already here. So that seeking energy wasn't really a big part of it at that point in my life. Yeah, so that knowingness that's already here, that is you, that is me. And then living as that, living as life, I noticed that the knowingness isn't separate from anything. The awareness is everything. You can't find something that's not knowing. And it was so much more fundamental than the idea of me, a separate thing, having to be here to know the world. Those illusions were exposed just to be thoughts. So in that realization of the self-knowingness, there was a letting go of that, those thoughts, those trying to figure it out. And in the knowingness, as that, there's no doubt in it. It's transcendent of doubt. The doubt isn't there. The doubt's not a fundamental aspect of it. And from that, you can see when the doubt thoughts come up. The doubt thoughts appear in the knowingness. They're made of knowingness, made of awareness. So you can't find a limit to it. It's everything. And so then the thoughts, there were thoughts that came up. There were so before this awakening, the thoughts would come up, and I would believe them. They would feel real. They would grab me, and they would feel believable and real. They would make the me that's thinking feel more real. After this awakening, so there would be crazy thoughts during this as well, like you're going to go insane. Stuff like this is ridiculous, and trying to explain things away and rationalize things into a subject-object narrative. And that came with like fear and anxiety and uncertainty and stuff like that. But after the awakening, there was like there was no belief in the reality of those thoughts. It was just thought coming and going. But the well-practiced automatic function of thought still continued. The thought still continued to form and dissolve. But there was no buy-in. There was no. It was clear that the subject was suggested in the content of the thoughts, the context of the thoughts. So there was no subject here to relate to them, to buy into it. So then it became, thought wasn't a problem at all anymore. Whereas trying to stop thinking was a problem before. After this realization, the thinking, the thoughts, weren't a problem anymore. And with that, they started to like calm down in their frequency and intensity over time. There were times where that subject would come back in its reality for a short period, but there was always a separation from it. There was never the full buy-in to it, even though that experience of the real me could come back in certain situations. It didn't have the same hold. It didn't have the same pull. It never had the same reality anymore. So then I could enjoy the qualities of what I had realized, being immediate reality, being essentially the senses, the sensations. I could enjoy that. I could enjoy being here, being fully present, and appreciating this time transcendent, infinite, outside time, knowingness that's just here, inherently. And that's when what you would call meditation became easy, because the meditator was not relevant anymore. It didn't have to be a me meditating. So you could say meditation, or that infinite awareness started to become infinitely accessible. Before it was me doing something and I had access to it, but then now it became the fundamental fabric of reality. So it wasn't a case of me accessing this state, it was just what is easily, inherently now. So the resistance and all that started to fade away too. With that, I had this feeling of this strange feeling of, I've done this before, this has happened before, I've been doing this for this has been happening transcendent of the lifetime of me, the individual, transcendent of this personal story. Something about what was realised transcended lifetimes. It felt like that. And it felt like there were these kind of strange emotional tones, these memory tones of that this is like a remembering of something that's already here. It's not like a getting something in this lifetime. This is about remembering something transcendent of this lifetime. I had a very extremely familiar remembering coming home feeling to it, and that was beautiful. It was such a massive release, such a massive relief. It took away a lot of that death thing, a lot of that what is this thing. There was a certainty in it that transcended those questions. There was a certainty in it that transcended life and death, and then it's difficult to explain. So that'll do for the first one, and I'll do the second part.